Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown and Phil Calandra as they walk you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here are your hosts, Rob and Phil.
Welcome, everybody. Time once again for the Purpose-Focused Advisor. I am excited today to have with me Jack Heintzelman, who is with Boston Wealth Strategies in Needham, Massachusetts. In addition to being a financial planner, Jack is also part of the NextGen committee with the local Financial Planning Association. And I emphasize that to start because those of you who have been tuning into our podcast in recent months know that it's been a lot of fun talking with next-gen financial planners because the way they look, the way that Jack looks at the industry is different than many of us who came up in the business before financial planning even became a thing, or in some cases, some advisors pretended that it was a thing. So I'm looking forward to talking to Jack about today about why he got into the business, why he is so passionate about financial planning and where he wants to take that. So Jack, with that introduction, let me formally welcome you to the Purpose Focused Advisor. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so let's dive in, Jack. Why do you do what you do as you think about in the seat you sit in today and how you got that? Talk about what brought you here and why you enjoy so much being an advocate for the financial planning industry.
Well, it's certainly evolved. I've told this to a few people. My story starts a little bit different than maybe most you hear in this industry. Some people have the connection to the industry through a parent or a grandparent. Some people went through a life event and really were attracted to providing that same guidance to others that may go through that life event. For me, I had not really any idea of what this industry was. I was fortunate that I had a couple internships with some advisors and just really became attracted to their day to day. I had always been growing up. I was always a people person. I always loved to talk to people, meet people, build relationships. And I think that's where I connected and it drew me most to what the day-to-day of these other advisors were. But I did a few internships at different types of advisory firms. And I think I was fortunate to learn what the industry looked like a little bit before I got into it, so I could be pretty clear in where I wanted to start. And I had a great internship opportunity my senior year of college and joined the firm that I'm at now, Boston Wealth Strategies. So about 7 years ago, I joined this firm as an intern, and I had a goal of how I wanted to get in this industry, which we can talk more about. But that I kind of fell into this industry. And then over the last 7 years, I've just been so fortunate to be at a great firm, have great mentors, have met amazing people along the way that has brought me energy and really made me feel like I fit and I belong. And now looking back, that's where a lot of this excitement, this energy comes from of, well, I got lucky to get here and I'm lucky to still be here. So I'm passionate now about how can I get other people that don't know about this industry or are getting into this industry and aren't so confident with it because they're not on the right path to make sure that they can be here where I am today. So that's really become my why, is helping, first of all, my clients. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so indirectly, I did hear the conversations that I'm now having with my clients. I just didn't really know that you could be a financial planner and give advice to people in those situations, which at the time was my mom running a lumber company and my dad running a golf teaching and instructing business. Those are the people that I'm fortunate to work with now. And that's why I'm happy to be able to give that advice to my clients. But then, as I mentioned, the advisors too, and my employees at the firm and other advisors out there in the industry, helping them get to where I am, but not only where I am, where I see other advisors that are 10, 15, 20 years in the business. And I'm fortunate to talk to because that's what I do. I'm a connector and I like to hear from other people and where they've gotten and being able to bring that conversation, that message back to people that maybe don't have that exposure. So very fortunate to be here, and I really do love it, Rob.
Yeah. No, I can tell by the way you talk about it both today and when we spoke a few weeks ago, just in preparation for being on the podcast. I love that enthusiasm. And Jack, it's not luck that you are where you are. You are supposed to be where you are. You just didn't know that before you got there. I really think that there's a plan for all of our lives, and we get put in the right places when we open ourselves up to the possibility. And you were very intentional about that as a young man. You said, I'm going to do these internships. And I'm not just going to do it so I can put it on my resume so that I can look better when I'm applying for a job when I finish college. You took them seriously. You studied the differences between the different firms that you were working with. Let's just spend a real short period of time on this, but because you did have 3 internships, and I talk to advisors all the time who want to build internship programs. If you were to say, these are 2 things, 3 things that a firm or a senior advisor who wants to have an intern should do to make an internship meaningful to them and to the intern, what would they be?
It's exposure. As much exposure you can get to that intern is so valuable.
So wait, you're saying sticking them in the back closet to scan documents so they can become paperless is not the right path?
Believe it or not, Rob, that's not it. Uh, I I was fortunate for all of those internships that I had. I was really able to see the day to day of what that advisor was doing. And it's counterintuitive in a way where we think about these great internship programs you have to build and you put the processes in place, you put the training programs in place, but really you can solve it by just putting them in with you in your day to day, right? Like you don't have to change your day to day, but bring them along for the ride and let them see what you're doing, right? I think we try to complicate it sometimes, myself included, of we want to just information overload, give them as much stuff as they can and build up this great training program. But can I just show them what I do and then give them time at the end of the day or the beginning of the next day to say like, hey, what questions do you have from the things that we spoke about today, the things that you're involved with, and ask them, hey, are you curious about anything about this firm that you've seen or you've heard, and can we get you some exposure to learn about that? I mean, that's the best way to learn. It's the way I learn. And I know for some people it's uncomfortable in the beginning. They might not have the confidence to be in these certain situations, but the internships that I had, the takeaways I had were by having that exposure, I built confidence and had clarity into what they did and what path I need to put myself to get to where they are and where I want to be.
I love that because I can remember I am in the industry because of an internship that I did literally my last month of college, and it's stuck, and it's been longer than you've been alive. I am this career that is not the internship, longer than you've been alive. But I love that day to day because too often when I talk to advisors about setting up internship programs, they turn it into a second job for themselves or somebody on their team, as if they have to set aside, you know, 2 hours every day, just to coach and train the interns. Whereas if they were to just be very intentional about how can I let the intern watch what I'm doing, in some cases be part of it because they have skills that they can use to do that. And then maybe at the end of the day or the end of the week, sit down and rehash. This is what we did this week. Let's just talk about what you saw, what you learned, what you want to learn more. It can be additive to the advisor or to the firm that is hiring the interns, and not something that takes away from the time that they, in many cases, don't feel like they have. That's why they brought the intern in the first place.
That's exactly it. And one other thing I'll add just on that is, um, there's opportunities to get involved in the industry. There's the Financial Planning Association, which I'm very involved with. There's study groups. There's communities for these interns or soon to be hires, whatever that first step is for them. But the way you do it might not be the way that it's done, and it might not be the way that you want that intern to do it, right? So by showing them your day to day is great. That's going to give them maybe some confidence, some clarity into like what an advisor does, but you want them to build themselves as an advisor. And this probably comes more so once they're actually hired. But I think getting them involved with other people that are in their situation, interns at other firms, the Financial Planning Association that hosts NextGen events for new advisors and interns and student communities, like let them get exposure to the other ways things are done and support them in that, so they're not using that to say, okay, well, he doesn't do it right, he or she doesn't do it right, I want to go somewhere else. But can they bring back some of that knowledge and expertise that you don't have the ability to do in your day-to-day and your timing to your firm, to you as an advisor for your clients? So I would also encourage that is promote them to get out, get involved, get educated, get exposure outside of just your firm.
Right. Because, and that's not, you take the day to day, and that is one way of not turning it into this part-time job of coaching interns and then using outside resources to do part of it. All of a sudden, having an intern really sounds simple. It has to, but I think it has to be intentional. You can't just, even in thinking about those two things, you can't just wait till last minute. Intern shows up on Monday morning and you don't know what they're going to do, at 9 o'clock. You probably need to do a little bit of advanced planning. But let's advance the ball, because the other thing that I think is fascinating about your excitement about the industry is that you became a meaningful member of your firm, of Boston Wealth, very quickly, because there was a process in place for taking you from intern to new hire to being an advisor, where the senior members of your team were thinking that through. And that can be really hard in the industry, because sometimes younger advisors want too much too fast, whether it's responsibility or money, and older advisors are curmudgeons. They want to hold on to their stuff, whether it's things they do or clients or money. And you've got to have a way to work together to build towards that. So why has that been successful for you, and how would you encourage others on both sides of that to move forward to really build next gen advisors into a firm, because it's so important?
The first place to start is, this is coming from the perspective of the younger advisor. I tell this to people a lot. Um, can you make sure that, or are you able to justify that the senior advisor, that senior planner, whoever is in leadership for you, the manager, are you able to confirm that they have at least your best interest in mind to start? And it doesn't need to be the dollars, it doesn't need to be the responsibility. Like, it's very simply a judgment of character and just having intentional conversations with that individual, that senior hiring, either in an interview or once you join the firm. Like, is there the right character there, that they believe in you and they want to put you on a path for success? If you can confirm that, then the other parts come along with it. I always say start there, because then it really depends on what firm you're with, what advisors you're with, the size of the firm. Like, it looks different in every capacity. But if you're confirming that initial part, then I go from there to say, you might have this intentional path that's created for you, and that's great. A firm might have a training development program, they might have a career path for you, but a lot of firms don't. I was at a small firm. I joined, there was 3 senior partners at the time, a practice manager, and there wasn't a lot of clarity around what that path looked like. All I heard in messaging was, "Jack, we believe in you. We want you to be the next generation of the firm. We want you to grow and become confident and help our clients." And that just was, and we want to support and mentor you along that way. Like, I heard that messaging, and the other stuff didn't matter at that time. I then from there had to come with my own intentionality and bring those ideas to the senior advisors of certain ways I wanted to grow in my career. And I think the problem is that it's a disconnect, because the young planners, the young next generation planners want a certain thing, and they think that the senior planners and advisors know what that is and how to provide that, right? And that's just not the case. A lot of older senior advisors grew up in an industry, a solo industry, where you cold called, you built your book of business, and that was that. You didn't have to manage people. You just made sure that you're bringing clients, you're bringing revenue into the firm. And that's the challenge of, sometimes they don't have the tools to provide that to the next generation. They might have the intention to do it, but not necessarily know how to provide that. So that was some of the case for me. I was a smaller firm. The senior planners really believed in me. They mentored and supported me, but I had to build out this path really for myself. And the way I did that was just surrounding myself with other people in the industry that did it a certain way. So I learned these different models. I learned the different ways that these young planners were being trained, and I brought these ideas back to the senior team. And no surprise, they supported me in that, because I had already confirmed that from the beginning, that that's what their intention was. They really, from their character, believed in me and where they wanted to get me. So then from there, I had to build a little bit of that path for myself, and that was coming from getting experiences outside. So whether that's different designations I want to get, licenses, my timeline of becoming an advisor, and the training that I needed to become that good advisor, different activity tracking that I needed, associations and networking that I wanted to be a part of, like that stuff I built out. And I think it's, again, going back to that initial point. Yes, it'd be perfect world, all these firms have all of these in place, right? But I tell people that, number one, make sure that the right intentions are there at the firm, and there's the right culture that you're joining, and you're being supported and you're being mentored, and make sure that you're taking a step forward every day that you go into the office, right? Because if they have the right intentions for you, that's great. They're going to support you on your path. And if you're taking a step forward, even better, because if something changes in that firm, where those advisors leave or they retire, and now you're stuck with maybe a person that doesn't have the same intentions or culture, well, every day you're taking a step forward, that wherever that next place is for you, that next path, well, you've been moving yourself forward. You've been getting your licenses, you've been getting your designations, you've been getting client experience. Like, you've taken a step forward.
Yeah, that's great, Jack. I appreciate you saying that. And what I pulled away from that is that belief is two ways. That you needed the senior leadership in your firm to express sincere belief in you that you could be successful, and you returned that by letting them know through your actions that you believed in them and that you wanted to live up to the expectations and the dreams that they had for you, and making you part of the team. And the actions were both ways, because I think it's so easy on either side of that equation for one side to get to the point where they're adding all the juice to the equation, and the other one just kind of laying back and saying, "Hey, bring it to me, bring it to me, bring it to me." And that's not how you build partnerships or build teams or build greater success. It's a two-way street, especially in this industry where a lot of these great opportunities for next gen advisors aren't with you know big firms with big salaries and big training programs. There's some of them out there, and that's right for some people. But I think the opportunities with the firm that it sounds like you're a part of are greater because and for you in particular, able to kind of feed that entrepreneurial niche that you have, or that entrepreneurial aspiration that you have.
Yeah, there's a few things I'll add to that relationship. You're exactly right. It's both sides. And I think there's a few things to add to that to strengthen that. And I think um the one that I'll say too, transparency and communication both ways is so important because that's just going to provide confirmation to both sides that there's not a miss in the messaging or the ideas that each of the parties have. Like it's clear what the intentions are between each other and communicating that on an ongoing basis so there's no miss in that. And then the last thing um, I've given advice to others in this situation is just like this. I say it's patience, but I get a little worried of that because I don't want it to get stagnant. Like maybe it's like an intentional patience where you have patience with each other that you're getting towards a certain path. But I don't say I say intentional rather than just stagnant is that patience. Make sure that you're still taking that step forward every day. Like I said, you're not just sitting behind a desk doing paperwork every day, the same thing, Groundhog Day, as you wait for that next opportunity, right? Like be patient knowing that you guys are going to get there together and it takes time to get there, along with that transparent communication along the way. But be intentional about the steps you're taking individually in your career so that you don't get stuck there 5 years in and now we're starting all over again at the same point.
Right. And there are a number of ways to do that. But as I work with advisors who are building teams, and not necessarily just with next gen or junior advisors, it could be any type of team member, making sure, as you said, that the planning is intentional. There is some measurable time period during which certain things are going to happen. And if those things happen, there is a next step, a next level, next place that you can go. So it becomes measurable. So it's not just because I know what you mean by stagnant, because I know people feel that they get trapped in a job because there's nothing going on. But it's the intentionality, it's the planning, it's the communication, it's the commitment to sit down and talk about this. Because you believe in each other, you can speak freely. So if you feel like, hey, I did more than my fair share, and you didn't recognize that, or you really didn't do what you said you were going to do, you just got by, to be able to have that open communication just allows that relationship to be alive and breathing and authentic. And the purpose comes together because you're not just working to advance Jack's career, you're working to advance the business of Boston Wealth, the team, and in your case, also build the industry, because of your belief in wanting next generation advisors to be more successful, to escape the trap of the known succession or lack of success rate, and build an industry where people are doing great things for clients because they're doing great things as teams.
Correct.
So build on that a little bit. And maybe I'll just go back a little bit to the last statement. We were talking about patience. How patient is patient? As you think about moving from, I just graduated from college, I did an internship here, I really want to get to the point where I can actually work with clients. What kind of levels do you think someone can work through to feel like they're really getting to that point? Because I know that a lot of younger advisors that I speak to, what they miss early on is they maybe even they did the CFP track in college, but then they're only doing business based on the numbers or the data that somebody else gathered, and they're throwing in some software, but they don't actually get to talk to people.
Yeah. I- It's I do think it's different for every individual that comes into the industry because it really it comes down to a lot of things, background, experience. You mentioned someone coming out of college with a CFP versus myself. I didn't have a CFP. I was a finance major, but I didn't really have a lot of background or any background really at all in personal financial planning. So it does depend on the individual. There's two things you said in there that I do think are important. One of them being just client-facing experience. That is something that you're only going to learn it by being in front of clients. And that can be in different capacities. I'm not saying you need to be thrown into a meeting and immediately start giving advice to clients, but I just mentioned as an intern, can an intern sit in on the day-to-day client meetings with a senior advisor, right? Like that's the first step. Then I do think so. That's what I would start immediately, and it's where I started in my career. Was I wasn't an advisor, a client-facing advisor on day one. I was a paraplanner, and I was doing a lot of our back office, our planning. I was doing our paperwork. I was doing some of our investment models. But along with that came me sitting in on meetings still. My job wasn't to be an advisor to give advice, but I was building my knowledge on what advisors did on the back end, helping the team grow, and then being in still those meetings. So I learned from day one what those conversations were having. And that really helped me see both sides of it, where I could see what an advisor does on the back end and then how he or she presents that to a client. Because that's the miss is you get all this technical knowledge from a CFP program, from your education and your experience, but you don't know how to communicate that to clients. And that is such an important skill to have. You could have the most knowledge in the world, but if you can't communicate that to a client for them to implement it, then all that knowledge goes to waste. So it's pairing those together. For me, I started again with no industry designations or licenses. So I did my licenses to start. I got my Series 7, my Series 63 and 65, some state licenses, some investment advisory licenses. And then I was starting on my CFP path. I did an online course, and then I took my exams. So that was probably a 1 to 2 year period. But along that path, I was doing those client-facing activities. I was starting to learn how to communicate that to clients and learning. I was sitting in that, like I mentioned, study groups at associations, like learning what advisors did, though I was not an advisor on day one. So I would say the patience comes in. You don't need to be managing 100 clients on day one and bringing in revenue and making great money on day one. What you need is to be supported, one, on the technical side from education, and that's support from the firm to get you into these programs that cost money. There's cost to that, but also there's the capacity for yourself to get out there and learn podcasts, articles, do the CFP education, pass the exams, do the studying. And then on the more advisor side is just making sure that you're getting that experience in front of clients as well. That's what I would focus on more than me being an advisor and making this money at this exact date. Like that steps that I mentioned in the beginning, that day to day, always getting better. If you're getting better education, better experience, and you're getting experience with clients and how to communicate with clients, it doesn't matter what happens at your firm. It doesn't matter the next firm you join. You are setting yourself up to be a successful advisor wherever it is. And I think that's the biggest key and why we see a failure rate in this industry is that we're not getting people to the place that they feel most comfortable to be an advisor and know they can do that wherever they want. It doesn't need to be in the firm. They think it needs to be done in the firm that they're at. They don't get that support along the way. And then they're like, oh crap, there's nowhere else for me to go. Now I'm done. Right. Like if I'm getting the education, the experience, it doesn't work out of this firm. Well, great. Now I can go help clients at this firm, in this firm, in this firm. If you know how to help clients now, the technical side and then the communication side, well, you're in an incredible industry and you're gonna help so many clients along your path.
Yeah, that is so well said because ceilings happen, or some firms develop unintentional limits on younger team members because they don't have the experience or can't envision what that path looks like. And um, sometimes the best way for a younger advisor to advance is to move forward somewhere else. But if you move forward somewhere else with a set of transferable skills, you're going to find that right place and you're going to be able to have that growth that you're looking for. And so, as you know, we've talked, about patience a lot on this. You can't be impatient to the point that you put expectations as a younger advisor on an employee that just because you think you're ready, they think you're ready. Um, and if they don't, then there's something wrong. Um, you just may have to work through it, take action, work through that. But don't also feel like you've dead ended yourself. Like I've wasted 3 years here because I haven't had those, opportunities to advance to the advisor level yet. I must not be very good at this. You start beating yourself up and you realize, hey, no, you actually did do those things. There's just a limit where you are for whatever reason. And now it's a time to say, okay, I'm going to regroup, look at my skills. And the real driver of a lot of that success, and hear this, senior advisors who are bringing in NextGen advisors, and hear this, NextGen advisors who are working for senior advisors, is actually being part of client conversations. The faster that happens and the more intentional that is, and the more you learn from that, if you're a junior NextGen advisor, the faster you're going to be ready to be a full-fledged financial advisor, financial planner, whatever that role is for you. And for you as the senior advisor, the faster you do that, the more you're going to have a loyal team member who's helping you provide a high level of service to your clients, so your firm and your team become stronger. And I'm being very detailed and intentional about saying that, Jack, because I see that. I just see I see the older advisors saying, well, I'm going to bring Jack in, and then 5 or 6 years, he should be ready to talk to a client. And I'm like, don't you mean 5 or 6 weeks? Or the younger advisor that says, well, I've been here 5 months and I've only been allowed to listen in client meetings. I haven't been allowed to talk. Well, maybe you need a little bit more time, so it's a balance. And I think that that's kind of the currency of the growth, is the frequency of those being involved in client engagement.
Correct.
Awesome. So, Jack, it's just about time to land the plane. We've had a great conversation. I could go on for hours, I'm sure, but I think it's also important for us to hear from you what you see is your next challenge, that next thing that you need to work through as you move to your next level of success in your career.
Excellent question, and this is something I could certainly go on for hours as well too, Rob. But I'll summarize it down to just, I mentioned this in the beginning of our call, that I'm kind of operating in, my why is really in two different places right now. One is at my firm, helping my clients and helping other colleagues at our firm grow. Um, and then also outside of our firm, across the industry, helping other individuals that are getting into this industry, whether they're young advisors or career changers, be more successful. Because ultimately, I can only help as many people in my individual role. We can only help as many individual people at our firm. But if we can spread that and compound that across the industry, how many more clients can we help along that path? So I look at both of those, and the challenges really are in both. It's looking at this transition that we're having in our industry, where we have older advisors and younger advisors that have this intention to transition their firm to the next generation, but there's just this disconnect along the way. We just spent 15, 30 minutes talking about it, right? Go back to that and listen through this. But um, that disconnect, can we bring it together and scale it so that other people can do it, right? People are going to listen to this call, senior advisors, and say, great, I love these ideas. I want to implement them now. And then they're going to have 8 client meetings a day, and they're going to have no time to figure out how to implement this with their next generation. Like, let's find a way to systemize this, whether it's the coaching that you're doing, Rob, it's the Financial Planning Association, it's articles, right? Like, the stuff that I'm trying to get out there is like implementation of this across different firms so that we can have that impact. And that includes ourselves at Boston Wealth. We're not perfect. I mentioned that I had to kind of build out this informal path for myself. Well, we have other young people coming into our firm that I want to have the same success as me. And I want to give them that path that's more formal so that it's easier for them to grow and be as successful as fast as possible. And then can we do that for other firms, other people that I'm talking to, both the next generation and the senior? I keep saying this. It's the way I do completely believe. I just think there's everything comes from the good, and it might be naive in me, but I really think a lot of people want to do the good for their firms and their clients. And this is the way to do it, to get that next generation involved. So let's do the good for that next generation. Next generation, let's be patient and do the good for our senior advisors so that we can help this transition happen over the next 5 to 10 years. That challenge is, how can we remove that disconnect, have the right communication, have the right paths, have the right development. So 5 years from now, we have thousands of other people that were able to take that 5 to 10 year path in this industry. And now they're successful advisors helping so many more clients across the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. The impact that an advisor can have is exponential, both when you think about the clients the advisor touches, and then the families that those clients have. And then if you feel it's part of your purpose, your cause, your passion to expand it, and that's how I became a coach, is I just saw the impact that I could have as a mentor to other advisors being exponential. Because if I have a bunch of Jacks who are working with me to be the best at what they can be, then that's getting out to more and more clients, and people are doing business the right way. And Jack, I think if I were I'm not sure I know what the title would be or is going to be for this podcast, but I think if I were throwing one on it right now, it would include the words intentional patience. So patient, or maybe patience with a purpose, so that you advance things in a way that really make logical sense, and people are working together in a way, because, putting in your words, you believe in each other and you want it to be successful. So Jack, any last thoughts or words before we call it a day?
I always love to finish with this, is just, if you're listening to this and you don't feel like you're in the right place, just stick with it. There's other places out there. This is the right industry for you. So stay here. You're going to help lots more clients. You're going to help lots more firms. So you're in the right place. Stay still.
And I bet if they connect with you on LinkedIn, that and have a question or two for you, that you'll be glad to point them in the right direction.
That's exactly right, Rob.
So we'll put your contact info in the show notes. And I want to pay a special compliment to you, Jack, because I talk to advisors, I talk to people all the time, and there aren't a lot of great listeners, but I can tell by talking to you that you are a great listener. As I ask questions, even though you may have started the answer in a different direction, you always went back to the question. And I think that's another really important skill of a really top level financial advisor. And I know that, and maybe the fact that you have had a mom in the lumber business and the dad in the golf training business, they were entrepreneurs, that added to it. But there's something really special about you and what you're doing. And I really am thankful that you were able to join me for this episode of the Purpose Focused Advisor. And for those of you who listen every week, make sure you listen again next week. And remember, as always, we're rooting for your success. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Purpose Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.